Before we dive into the chilling events that unfolded that night, smash that subscribe button, hit like if you want the darkest true crime stories, and comment below. But beware, this one will haunt your thoughts. The Nesconset neighborhood on Long Island had always seemed quiet, almost deceptively peaceful. Street lights flickered weakly over rows of modest suburban homes, their lawns perfectly trimmed, cars parked neatly along driveways. But on this night, the stillness was broken by something far more sinister. A single gunshot echoed through the streets around 8:30 p.m., shattering the calm and sending a ripple of fear through the neighborhood. Inside a two-story house on Elmwood Drive, Emily Finn, 18, had just arrived. She carried a small bag of belongings, tokens of a life she thought she could reclaim, or maybe just a way to close a chapter she didn't want to reopen. Her ex-boyfriend, a 17-year-old whose name police withheld due to his age, was waiting inside. Neighbors would later describe seeing the front door slightly ajar, the warm glow of the living room spilling onto the porch, completely normal, until the sound of chaos erupted. The first officer to arrive described a scene that seemed almost surreal. Blood splattered across the living room carpet, the room in disarray, as if a struggle had taken place. Emily lay motionless on the floor, her life snatched away in seconds. Nearby, the teenager was discovered with a gun in his hand, his face injured from what appeared to be a self-inflicted wound. The parents, who had been away at the time, rushed home after hearing sirens, their screams piercing the night. Detective Laura Mitchell, a veteran of Suffolk County's Homicide Division, was called to the scene immediately. She had seen her share of teenage tragedies, but something about this case felt different. It wasn't just the brutality, it was the intimacy of the violence, the way two lives so young had collided in the most permanent way imaginable. This wasn't random, this was personal. Too personal, Mitchell said later. Clues were sparse at first. A half-empty cup of soda on the counter, a backpack abandoned near the staircase. Emily's phone, face down on the floor, screensaver still glowing with a cheerful photo of her and friends at her recent graduation. Every detail seemed innocent until you pieced them together against the stark backdrop of murder. The teenager, barely conscious, could barely speak when paramedics arrived. Fragments of his confession floated in the air between groans. I couldn't let her. His words trailed off, leaving investigators to wonder if it was jealousy, rage, or a desperate bid for attention that had led to this nightmare. The immediate question that consumed everyone on the scene: why? As forensic teams combed the house, the investigation began to reveal a web of tension and secret grievances. Text messages between Emily and her ex hinted at arguments in the weeks leading up to the tragedy, but nothing that suggested the lethal conclusion that had unfolded. Neighbors whispered about the seemingly normal couple, unaware that behind closed doors, danger had been silently brewing. But just when it seemed investigators had begun to grasp the story, they found something shocking. A locked drawer in the teenager's bedroom, partially hidden behind a stack of textbooks. The key was missing. What it contained, authorities believed, could change everything they thought they knew about the motive and the events that led to that fatal night. The locked drawer in the teenager's bedroom became the obsession of Detective Laura Mitchell and her team. It wasn't just any drawer, it radiated secrecy. The moment the forensic locksmith clicked it open, the room seemed to grow colder, the shadows stretching unnaturally along the walls. Inside were journals, handwritten notes, and photographs, each one more disturbing than the last. They revealed a mind consumed with jealousy, fear, and obsession, a private world that no one, not even Emily, had been allowed to see. Emily had been careful to maintain a life outside of her relationship. She had friends, college plans, and aspirations that extended far beyond her small town. But in those pages, it became clear that her ex-boyfriend had watched, tracked, and cataloged every aspect of her life. Who she spoke to, where she went, even what she wore. The obsession had grown quietly, hidden behind smiles and casual greetings. And now, it had erupted into violence that no one could undo. Meanwhile, the teenager remained in critical condition at Stony Brook University Hospital. Officers stationed outside his room reported seeing him wake briefly, eyes darting around as if expecting someone to confront him. His parents, shattered and silent, hovered near the doorway, a mixture of horror and disbelief etched across their faces. I never thought he was capable of this, his mother whispered, tears streaming. The room was thick with tension, every breath a reminder of how fragile life can be when obsession and rage collide. The police began tracing the final moments before the murder. Emily's last messages to friends were innocuous, a simple plan to return her ex's belongings, a casual "see you soon," but her words belied the tension that had been simmering for weeks. Witnesses later described seeing her walking up the driveway, casual and unaware, oblivious to the danger lurking inside. It was a routine visit that turned into a nightmare, a fleeting moment of trust that ended in tragedy. As detectives examined the scene further, they found an email draft on the teenager's computer, unsent but telling. In it, he wrote about feeling powerless, about losing control over the person he claimed to love. "If I can't have her, no one can," one line read. The words chilled even seasoned investigators. It wasn't just a crime of passion. It was a calculated, twisted manifestation of possessiveness and despair. But then came the twist that changed everything. Among the journals and photographs, police discovered messages to someone else, a friend, or perhaps a confidant that hinted at a deeper plan. There were references to making it last forever, cryptic notes about hiding evidence, and a series of strange, almost ritualistic checklists. It suggested that the act had been premeditated, not a fleeting moment of rage. For Detective Mitchell, the question became, how many signs had been missed? How many people had glimpsed warning signals but assumed it was teenage drama? The neighborhood, meanwhile, was reeling. Rumors spread, parents whispered to each other, and fear hung thick in the air. Teenagers avoided certain streets, and families double-checked their doors and windows, haunted by the knowledge that such horror had happened right in their midst. But then the most chilling realization came when investigators found security camera footage from a nearby house. In it, Emily is seen hesitating at the front porch, glancing over her shoulder as if sensing danger, a premonition perhaps of the violence waiting inside. And then came the discovery that nobody could have predicted. The key to the drawer hadn't been missing at all. It had been deliberately hidden, placed somewhere only the teenager knew, and inside, tucked beneath the journals, was a small, unsigned letter, addressed not to Emily, but to someone else entirely. The implications of that letter threatened to unravel everything investigators thought they knew about motive, betrayal, and the true scale of the danger lurking beneath the quiet suburban streets. What they read in that letter would leave the entire case teetering on a knife's edge and set the stage for revelations that no one could have imagined. The small letter hidden beneath the teenager's journals had been overlooked in the chaos of the initial investigation, but once Detective Laura Mitchell read it, the entire case shifted. The letter wasn't addressed to Emily. It was addressed to someone close to the teenager, someone whose name had never surfaced in police reports. Its contents hinted at complicity, or at least knowledge of his plan, and painted a darker, more calculated picture than investigators had imagined. Whoever had been on the receiving end of that note may have unknowingly or deliberately fueled the tragedy that was already spiraling out of control. Meanwhile, the teenager's condition stabilized enough for questioning, but he remained cagey, muttering fragments of words and shifting his eyes as if trying to hide something even now. The hospital room became a cage of tension, his parents pleading quietly, officers watching every move, and Detective Mitchell trying to piece together a puzzle that was constantly reshaping itself. Each revelation from the journals, the emails, and now the letter added a new layer of complexity. Forensic teams re-examined the living room, the site of the murder. Bloodstains that initially seemed random now told a different story. The trajectory of the bullets, the placement of the bodies, and even the overturned furniture suggested more than a momentary act of rage.
It looked almost choreographed, precise, as though the teenager had rehearsed this moment in his mind for weeks. And then there were the fingerprints, not all of them his. Investigators found subtle traces that suggested someone else had been inside, someone who had handled objects, possibly even manipulated the scene after the fact. Detective Mitchell called in cybercrime experts to comb through phones, computers, and social media. What they discovered was chilling: encrypted messages between the teenager and an anonymous contact, filled with veiled threats and discussions about making it permanent. The tone indicated obsession, yes, but also the involvement of another party, a shadow lurking behind the main tragedy. Was it a friend? A sibling? Someone outside the immediate circle? Every answer seemed to raise more questions. Then came the breakthrough. Investigators traced the letter and messages to a distant acquaintance who had, intentional or not, encouraged the teenager's darkest impulses. Confronted with evidence, the individual crumbled, admitting to subtle encouragement, sharing articles about possessive love, romantic obsession, and even violent solutions to breakups. It wasn't a direct hand in the murder, but it had been enough to feed the teenager's obsession, turning his private torment into real-world horror. By the time police had pieced together the final timeline, the neighborhood still trembled at the thought of what had happened. Emily's last moments were now clearer. She had entered the house with hope and trust, unaware of the premeditation that awaited her. The teenager had acted out of obsession, jealousy, and a misguided sense of possession, but he had also been subtly manipulated by someone he trusted. It was a perfect storm of youth, emotion, and secrecy, a combination that no one could have predicted until it was too late. The case closed with arrests and charges, but the aftermath lingered like a shadow over the community. Emily's friends and family grieved, haunted by the knowledge that signs had existed, warnings that had gone unnoticed. The teenager faced the justice system as a minor, his future uncertain, while those who had nudged him toward violence carried their own guilt. And just when the world thought the nightmare had ended, a chilling message arrived at Detective Mitchell's office. A social media account had posted a cryptic image, a reminder that obsession never truly dies, and that darkness can linger in the most unsuspecting places. They thought the killer was contained, but the echoes of that night would haunt Nesconset forever.